What if the person you trusted most turned your happiest moment into your worst nightmare? The silk dress tore with a sound that silenced 300 wedding guests. Amara stood frozen in the center of the grand ballroom, her 6-month pregnant belly exposed as the burgundy fabric fell away from her body in strips. The room seemed to hold its breath. Cameras flashed, phones lifted, and at the altar, wearing his pristine white tuxedo, with his new bride clutching his arm, stood Kofi, the man who had just ripped Amara's dress in front of everyone. But this isn't where our story begins. To understand how a wedding became a battlefield, we need to go back. Back to when Amara believed in forever. 3 years earlier, Amara Okonkwo was a 25-year-old nurse working double shifts at Memorial Hospital in Atlanta. She had warm brown eyes that crinkled when she smiled, and a laugh that made strangers want to be her friend. Her life was simple but good. She sent money home to her mother in Lagos every month, attended church on Sundays, and dreamed of starting a family someday. That's when she met Kofi Mensah. He walked into the emergency room one rainy October night with a sprained ankle from playing basketball. Amara was the nurse who treated him. Kofi was charming, with a smile that could light up a room and words that dripped like honey. He worked in finance, drove a BMW, and wore cologne that probably cost more than Amara's rent. But what captured her heart wasn't his money or his looks. It was the way he looked at her, like she was the only person in the world who mattered. Within 6 months, they were married. It was a small ceremony at her church, with her mother flying in from Nigeria and his family driving down from New York. Amara wore a simple white dress she'd found at a boutique sale. Kofi cried when he said his vows. She remembered thinking that day that God had finally answered her prayers. The first year was beautiful. They moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Buckhead. Amara cut back her hours to spend more time at home. Kofi said he wanted to take care of her, that she didn't need to work so hard anymore. She believed him. She believed everything he said. But love, Amara would learn, can be a beautiful lie wrapped in expensive paper. The changes started small. Kofi began coming home late, smelling a perfume that wasn't hers. When she asked questions, he called her insecure. When she found suspicious texts on his phone, he said she was invading his privacy. Amara ignored the red flags because she'd been taught that good wives fight for their marriages. She prayed more, cooked his favorite meals, bought new lingerie, did everything the women at church said would keep a man interested. Then she got pregnant. The day she showed Kofi the positive pregnancy test, she expected joy. Instead, his face went cold. He stared at the little stick with the 2 pink lines like it was a death sentence. "Are you sure it's mine?" he asked. Those 5 words shattered something in Amara that would never fully heal. She was 7 weeks along and had never been with another man in her entire life. Her hands shook as she dropped the test on the bathroom counter. "How could you ask me that?" Kofi didn't answer. He just walked out of the bathroom, grabbed his car keys, and left. He didn't come home that night, or the next. When he finally returned 3 days later, he acted like nothing had happened. He kissed her forehead and asked what was for dinner. Amara should have left then, but she was pregnant, alone in a country far from her family, and terrified of becoming a single mother. So she stayed. She stayed through the silent treatments and the mysterious charges on their credit card. She stayed when he stopped sleeping in their bed. She stayed when she found the hotel receipts. At 5 months pregnant, she discovered the truth. His secretary called the house by accident, thinking she was calling Kofi's cell phone. The woman was crying, saying she couldn't do this anymore, that Kofi had promised to leave his wife but kept making excuses. When Amara identified herself, the line went dead. That night, Amara packed her clothes while Kofi was at work. She took her grandmother's wedding ring, her nursing certificates, and the ultrasound photos of their baby. She left the apartment keys on the kitchen counter with her wedding ring beside them. She moved into a small studio apartment across town and filed for divorce. The divorce was finalized when she was 7 months pregnant. Kofi fought her on everything: the car, the furniture, even her grandmother's ring. He hired an expensive lawyer who made Amara look like a gold digger in court, even though she'd asked for nothing but her personal belongings. In the end, she walked away with barely anything. But she had her dignity in her baby. That was enough, or so she thought. 2 months after the divorce, Amara gave birth to a healthy baby girl she named Zuri. The labor was long and painful, And she did it alone because Kofi never showed up to the hospital, even though she'd texted him when her contractions started. She told herself she didn't need him. She'd raise Zuri by herself and give her daughter all the love that Kofi couldn't provide. But then, 3 months after Zuri was born, Amara got the wedding invitation. It arrived in a cream-colored envelope with gold lettering. Mr. Kofi Mensah and Miss Jasmine Taylor request your presence at their wedding ceremony. The secretary, he was marrying the secretary, and somehow, impossibly, they'd send Amara an invitation. At first, she thought it was a mistake, but then her phone buzzed with a text from a number she didn't recognize. Make sure you come. Kofi wants you to see how happy he is now. Wear something nice. Maybe that burgundy dress you wore to his company party. Oh wait, you probably can't fit in it anymore after the baby. See you there. The message was from Jasmine. What happened next would change everything. But Amara couldn't have known that as she stared at that text message, her hands trembling with rage and humiliation. She couldn't have known that accepting this invitation would lead to the most shocking moment of her life, and a revenge so perfect, so utterly devastating, that it would make Kofi wish he'd never met her. If you're as shocked as I was when I first heard this story, hit that like button right now. And listen, my mom says I can't reach 1,000 subscribers. Let's prove her wrong together. Subscribe to this channel and turn on those notifications because you absolutely need to see what Amara does next. Trust me, this revenge is unlike anything you've ever seen. What would you do if your ex sent you a wedding invitation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Amara didn't sleep that night. She sat in her tiny studio apartment, nursing Zuri while staring at that wedding invitation on her coffee table. The audacity of it burned through her veins like acid. They wanted her to come. They wanted her to witness their happiness, to see that Kofi had moved on to someone younger, someone who didn't have stretch marks and bags under her eyes from sleepless nights with a colicky baby. The old Amara would have thrown that invitation in the trash and cried herself to sleep. But something had changed in her during those long nights alone in the hospital, during those moments when she'd held her newborn daughter and realized that she was all Zuri had. The heartbreak had forged her into someone new, someone harder, someone who was tired of being treated like she didn't matter. She was going to that wedding, but not as the broken, discarded ex-wife they expected to see. The next morning, Amara called her cousin Kioma, who lived in Houston. Kioma was everything Amara wasn't, bold, loud, and completely unapologetic about taking up space in the world. When Amara told her about the invitation, Kioma screamed so loud that Amara had to pull the phone away from her ear. They invited you to what? Girl, we're going to that wedding, and we're going to shut it down. I'm booking a flight right now. Kioma, I don't want to cause trouble. I just want to show up looking good and show them that they didn't break me. Baby girl, looking good is causing trouble. Trust me on this. Kioma arrived 3 days later with 2 suitcases full of clothes, makeup, and what she called the arsenal. That weekend, they went shopping. Amara had gained weight after the pregnancy, and most of her old clothes didn't fit anymore. But Kioma took one look at her and said, "You're not hiding anything. We're celebrating this body. You grew a whole human being. That's power." They found the dress at a boutique in Midtown. It was burgundy, the exact color Jasmine had mentioned in her text. But that's where the similarity ended. This dress was a masterpiece. It hugged every curve, with a flowing skirt that moved like water when Amara walked. The neckline was elegant but showed just enough to remind everyone that she was a woman, not just someone's ex-wife. When Amara looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the person staring back. "That's the one," Kioma said, grinning. "Kofi's going to choke on his champagne when he sees you." But Amara had a problem. She was still nursing Zuri, and her breasts were engorged most of the time. The week before the wedding, she got mastitis, a painful infection that made her feverish and weak. She couldn't take the strong antibiotics she needed because she was breastfeeding. Her mother, who had flown in from Nigeria to help with the baby, begged her not to go to the wedding. "Amara, your health is more important than pride. Let these people celebrate their wickedness in peace. God will judge them." But Amara was determined. She pumped and stored enough milk for Zuri, took the antibiotics, and prayed that her body would cooperate for just one day. The morning of the wedding, She woke up feeling terrible. Her breasts were rock hard and painful, and she had a low-grade fever. But she looked at that dress hanging on her closet door and thought about that text message from Jasmine. She thought about Kofi asking if the baby was his. She thought about signing divorce papers alone while he was probably in bed with his secretary. She got dressed. The wedding was at the Four Seasons in downtown Atlanta. It was the kind of venue that screamed money: crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and centerpieces that probably cost more than Amara's monthly rent. When she walked in with Kioma by her side, she felt every eye in that lobby turned toward her. She held her head high and followed the signs to the ballroom. The ceremony was already in progress. Amara and Kioma slipped into seats in the very back row. From there, Amara could see everything: the elaborate floral arrangements, the string quartet, Kofi's family in the front row, and at the altar, Kofi himself, looking like a prince in his white tuxedo. Jasmine was beautiful. That was the worst part. She wore a dress that probably cost $20,000 with a train so long it took two flower girls to carry it. Her makeup was flawless. Her smile was radiant. And when the pastor asked if anyone had objections to this marriage, she looked out at the crowd with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no in her entire life. Amara stayed silent. This wasn't the time. Not yet. The ceremony ended with cheers and applause. Amara's stomach churned as she watched Kofi kiss his new bride. Kioma squeezed her hand. "You okay?" "I'm fine. Let's go to the reception." The cocktail hour was in a separate room with an open bar and enough food to feed a small country. Amara wasn't hungry, but she forced herself to eat something because she needed her strength. She could feel the antibiotics making her dizzy, and her dress was getting tighter around her chest as her breasts filled with milk. She'd forgotten to pump before leaving the house. That's when she saw Kofi's mother. Mrs. Mensah had never liked Amara. She'd made that clear from the beginning, always commenting on how Amara wasn't sophisticated enough for her son, how her family didn't have the right connections. At the wedding, Mrs. Mensah walked right past Amara without acknowledging her, but she stopped when she saw Kioma. "Who invited you?" Mrs. Mensah asked, her voice dripping with disdain. "Your son did," Amara said, stepping forward. "We got a special invitation." Mrs. Mensah's face went pale, then red. She opened her mouth to say something, but Kofi appeared beside her. "Mom, it's fine. I invited her." This was the first time Amara had seen Kofi up close since the divorce. He looked different, older maybe, or just tired behind the smile. His eyes flickered to her dress, then away quickly. "You look good," he said, and it sounded like an accusation. "Thank you. Congratulations on your wedding." The words felt like glass in her mouth, but she said them with a smile. Kofi nodded and started to walk away, but then he turned back. "Where's the baby?" "Her name is Zuri, and she's with my mother. I want to see her sometime. I am her father." Amara laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that made several people turn to look. "You are her father? You didn't show up when she was born. You haven't sent a single dollar for diapers or formula. You haven't even asked about her until this exact moment. But now on your wedding day, you suddenly want to play daddy?" Kofi's jaw tightened. "We'll talk about this later. This isn't the time or place." "You're right. This is your special day. Go enjoy it." He walked away, and Amara felt a small surge of satisfaction. But it wasn't enough, not nearly enough. The reception started an hour later. The ballroom had been transformed into something out of a fairy tale. There were ice sculptures, a live band, and a dance floor that sparkled like it was made of diamonds. Amara and Chioma found their assigned table in the back, far from the head table where Kofi and Jasmine sat like royalty. Dinner was served, a 5-course meal that Amara barely tasted. She was too focused on watching Kofi and Jasmine, the way they laughed and whispered to each other, the way he looked at his new wife with an adoration he'd never shown Amara, not even in the beginning. Then came the speeches. Kofi's best man told embarrassing stories about their college days. Jasmine's maid of honor gushed about how perfect they were together. And then Kofi stood up to give his own speech. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight to celebrate the beginning of my new life. Marriage is about finding your perfect match, your soulmate, the person who makes you want to be better. I thought I knew what love was before, but I was wrong. Jasmine showed me what real love looks like. She showed me what it means to be with someone who truly understands you, who supports your dreams, who doesn't try to trap you into a life you don't want. Amara's hand tightened around her fork. Trap him? She'd never trapped him into anything. He was the one who'd proposed, who'd talked about having babies and growing old together. So here's to new beginnings, Kofi continued, raising his glass. To leaving the past behind and embracing the future. To my beautiful wife, Jasmine. You saved me. The room erupted in applause. Amara felt Kioma's hand on her arm, holding her down in her seat. Don't. Not yet. But something in Amara snapped. Maybe it was the fever making her delirious. Maybe it was months of suppressed rage finally breaking through. Maybe it was the way everyone in that room was celebrating while she sat in the back like a ghost, like someone who'd never mattered at all. She stood up. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor, and several people turned to look. Amara, sit down, Kioma hissed. But Amara was already walking toward the head table. Before we find out what happens when Amara confronts them, I need you to do something for me. Drop a comment right now telling me where you're watching this from. Are you Team Amara or Team Kofi? And what would you do in this situation? Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Smash that subscribe button because trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. The revenge Amara has planned will leave you speechless. Like this video if you're on the edge of your seat right now. Every step toward that head table felt like walking through water. The room seemed to tilt, and Amara couldn't tell if it was the fever or the adrenaline pumping through her veins. The band had stopped playing. Conversations died mid-sentence. 300 pairs of eyes followed her movement across the ballroom floor. Kofi saw her coming. His smile faltered, then froze on his face like a mask. Jasmine turned in her seat, her expression shifting from confusion to something that looked almost like satisfaction. She'd wanted this. They both had. They'd sent that invitation because they wanted to see Amara broken, wanted to parade their happiness in front of her like a trophy. But Amara wasn't broken. Not anymore. I'm sorry to interrupt, Amara said when she reached the table. Her voice was calm, steady. I just wanted to say congratulations, and to give you both a wedding gift. She reached into her purse. For a moment, Kofi's eyes widened with something that might have been fear, but Amara only pulled out an envelope, white, simple, with their names written across the front in her neat handwriting. What is this? Jasmine asked, her voice sharp. Open it. Kofi took the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were photographs. Lots of them. Pictures of Kofi and Jasmine together at restaurants, hotels, his apartment, all dated from when he was still married to Amara. Screenshots of text messages where they mocked Amara, where Kofi called his pregnant wife clingy and desperate. Bank statements showing that Kofi had spent thousands of dollars on Jasmine, jewelry, trips, designer clothes, while claiming to Amara that they needed to save money for the baby. But the most damning item was at the bottom of the stack. A legal document proving that Kofi had tried to contest paternity of Zuri, demanding a DNA test because he'd wanted to avoid paying child support. The test had come back showing he was definitely the father, but he'd still refused to pay a single cent. Jasmine's face went white as she looked through the pictures. Around them, guests were standing up, craning their necks to see what was happening. Someone had started recording on their phone. Where did you get these? Kofi's voice was barely a whisper. Does it matter? What matters is that everyone here gets to see who you really are. You stood up here and talked about new beginnings and leaving the past behind. But I am your past, Kofi. I'm the woman you married and promised to love forever. I'm the woman who carried your child while you were in hotel rooms with your secretary. I'm the woman you tried to destroy because it was easier than being a man. You need to leave, Kofi said, standing up. His face was red now, a vein throbbing in his temple. This is my wedding. You have no right to be here. I have every right. You invited me, remember? Or did Jasmine send that text without telling you? Amara turned to address the room, her voice carrying across the silent ballroom. He invited me here to humiliate me, to show me that he'd upgraded. But here's what I want everyone to know. This man abandoned his 3-month-old daughter. He's never held her, never changed her diaper, never sent money for her formula. He's a deadbeat father who's too busy playing dress-up in a tuxedo to take care of his responsibilities. The room exploded. Kofi's mother rushed toward them, screaming at Amara to get out. Jasmine was crying, mascara running down her face as she looked at the photographs. Some guests were recording everything on their phones. Others were arguing among themselves. The carefully orchestrated fairy tale was collapsing in real time. And then Kofi did something that changed everything. He grabbed Amara's arm, his fingers digging into her flesh hard enough to bruise. "I said leave. Let go of me. You want to embarrass me? You want to ruin my wedding? Fine. Let's show everyone what you really are." Before Amara could process what was happening, Kofi reached for her dress. She tried to pull away, but his grip was too strong. She heard fabric tearing, that awful ripping sound that would haunt her dreams for years to come. The burgundy dress that had made her feel beautiful, that had given her the courage to walk into this room, fell away in strips. She stood there in her shapewear and nursing bra, her post-pregnancy body exposed to 300 strangers. Camera flashes went off like lightning. Someone gasped, someone else laughed, and Kofi stood there with pieces of her dress in his hands, his face twisted with rage and something worse, satisfaction. This was what he'd wanted all along, not just to move on, but to destroy her completely. For 3 seconds, Amara couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. She was back in the hospital room, alone and in labor, texting a man who would never come. She was back in the courtroom, listening to lawyers call her a gold digger. She was back in that bathroom, hearing Kofi ask if the baby was really his. But then something clicked into place. A cold, clear fury that burned away the shame and the fear. Amara looked at Kofi, then at Jasmine, then at the crowd of people staring at her with their phones raised, and she smiled. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Thank you for showing everyone exactly who you are." She turned and walked out of that ballroom with her head held high, leaving the torn dress behind like a shed skin. Kioma ran after her, wrapping her jacket around Amara's shoulders. They made it to the parking lot before Amara finally broke down, collapsing against Kioma's car while sobs tore through her body. "I'm so sorry," Kioma whispered, holding her. "I'm so sorry. We should have left earlier." "We should have—" "No." Amara pulled back, wiping her eyes. "No, this is exactly what needed to happen." "What do you mean?" "He put his hands on me in front of 300 witnesses. He assaulted me, and everyone recorded it." Kioma's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Oh my God. By tomorrow morning, this is going to be everywhere. Social media, maybe even the news. Everyone is going to see what he did. And when they do, his reputation, his career, everything he cares about, it's going to be gone." Amara pulled out her own phone. Already the videos were starting to appear online. Someone had posted on Instagram with the caption, "Groom attacks ex-wife at his own wedding." Another video on Twitter was titled, "This is the most dramatic wedding I've ever seen." The views were climbing by the second. Thousands, then tens of thousands. But Amara wasn't done, not even close. She opened her own social media accounts, pages she'd barely used since the divorce. She posted one of the photos from the envelope, the one showing Kofi and Jasmine together 6 months before he and Amara had divorced. She added a caption, "This is Kofi Mensah. He cheated on his pregnant wife, abandoned his newborn daughter, and tonight he physically assaulted me at his wedding because I dared to show up when he invited me. My only crime was existing. Please share this so everyone knows who they're really celebrating." Within minutes, her phone was blowing up with notifications. Comments flooded in, some supportive, some cruel, but all of them spreading the story further. News outlets started reaching out for interviews. Women's advocacy groups were sharing her post. Someone had even started a GoFundMe to help her pay for a lawyer. "This is going viral," Kioma said, scrolling through her own phone. "Amara, this is really going viral. There are thousands of people talking about this right now." Amara nodded, feeling strangely calm despite everything. The physical pain, her bruised arm, her engorged breasts, the fever still burning through her, all of it faded into background noise. She had done what she came to do. She had shown Kofi that she wouldn't be silent anymore, that she wouldn't be erased. but even she couldn't have predicted what would happen next. Her phone rang, unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Miss Okonkwo, this is Detective James Rodriguez with the Atlanta Police Department. We've received multiple reports about an assault that occurred at the Four Seasons Hotel tonight. Several witnesses have submitted video evidence. We'd like to take your statement and discuss pressing charges. Amara looked at Kioma, who was nodding frantically. Yes, Amara said. Yes, I'd like to press charges. Back at the Four Seasons, Kofi's wedding reception had descended into chaos. Half the guests had left. The ones who remained were divided into camps. Those who defended Kofi, claiming Amara had provoked him, and those who were disgusted by what they'd witnessed. Jasmine had locked herself in the bridal suite, refusing to come out, and Kofi sat at the head table, surrounded by empty chairs, watching his perfect day crumble around him. His best man approached carefully. Man, you need to get out of here. The videos are everywhere. People are calling you out by name. Your company's name is being mentioned. This is bad. It was supposed to be simple, Kofi muttered. She was supposed to see me happy and realize what she lost. That's all. Why did she have to make it complicated? You ripped her dress off, Kofi, in front of everyone. What did you think was going to happen? But Kofi wasn't listening. He was scrolling through his phone, watching the videos multiply, reading the comments that called him a monster, an abuser, a deadbeat father. His carefully constructed image was being torn apart just like that burgundy dress. And somewhere in Atlanta, Amara Okonkwo was making a plan that would ensure Kofi never forgot the woman he'd tried to erase. A plan that would make him wish he'd never sent that wedding invitation. Because the dress ripping wasn't the revenge, it was just the beginning. Can you believe what Kofi did? I'm still shocked just telling you this story. If you think Kofi got what he deserved, drop a like on this video right now. Share this with someone who needs to hear about karma catching up with bad people. And comment below, do you think Amara's revenge goes too far, or is Kofi getting exactly what he earned? Subscribe and turn on notifications because you won't want to miss a single second. The police station smelled like stale coffee and disinfectant. Amara sat in a small interview room, still wearing Kioma's jacket over her ruined clothes, giving her statement to Detective Rodriguez. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a notepad filled with careful handwriting. And you're certain you want to press charges? He asked. I need to be honest with you, Miss Okonkwo. Cases like this can be difficult. Defense attorneys will argue that it was just a torn dress, that no real harm was done. They'll try to paint you as vindictive. I understand, but he put his hands on me. He assaulted me in front of hundreds of people because I told the truth. If I don't stand up now, what message does that send to my daughter? That men can do whatever they want and face no consequences? Detective Rodriguez nodded slowly. Okay, we'll move forward with the charges. Assault and battery. Given the video evidence and the number of witnesses, I think we have a strong case. Amara left the station at 2 in the morning. Kioma drove her home in silence, both of them too exhausted for words. When they arrived at Amara's apartment, her mother was waiting up, holding a sleeping Zuri in her arms. My daughter, her mother said in Igbo, tears streaming down her face. What did they do to you? Amara took Zuri from her mother's arms and held her close, breathing in that sweet baby smell. They showed me who they really are, Mama, and now the whole world knows too. The next morning, Amara woke up to find that her life had changed completely. Her social media post had been shared over 50,000 times. News outlets were running stories with headlines like, Groom assaults pregnant ex-wife at wedding, and viral video shows shocking attack at luxury reception. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, lawyers, women's advocacy groups, even a producer from a daytime talk show. But the most important call came from Kofi's employer. Kofi worked for Greenfield Financial, one of the top investment firms in Atlanta. They prided themselves on their image, ethical, family-oriented, community-focused. Having an employee go viral for assaulting his ex-wife at his own wedding was not the kind of publicity they wanted. Amara didn't call them. They called her. Miss Okonkwo, this is Patricia Chen, head of human resources at Greenfield Financial. We want you to know that we take the allegations against Mr. Mensah very seriously. We've launched an internal investigation, and he's been placed on immediate leave pending the outcome. We also wanted to ask if you'd be willing to meet with us to discuss the situation." Amara agreed to the meeting. 3 days later, she sat in a conference room at Greenfield Financial with their entire executive team. She brought copies of everything: the photos, the text messages, the bank statements showing how Kofi had stolen from their joint account to fund his affair, the legal documents about the paternity test, and a detailed timeline of his harassment. "This isn't just about what happened at the wedding," Amara told them. "This is about a pattern of behavior. Kofi Mensah is a man who lies, cheats, and abuses people when they inconvenience him. Is that really someone you want representing your company?" Patricia Chen looked at the documents spread across the table. "Miss Okonkwo, I want to apologize on behalf of Greenfield Financial. We had no idea about any of this. Mr. Mensah always presented himself as a model employee." "That's what abusers do," Amara said quietly. "They're charming in public. It's only behind closed doors that the mask comes off." 2 days later, Greenfield Financial released a statement. "After a thorough investigation, we have terminated Kofi Mensah's employment, effective immediately. Greenfield Financial does not tolerate any form of harassment, abuse, or behavior that contradicts our core values." Kofi lost his job, but Amara wasn't finished. She hired a lawyer, not just any lawyer, but Marcus Webb, the best family law attorney in Atlanta. He was a tall black man with silver hair and a reputation for destroying deadbeat fathers in court. When Amara told him her story, his jaw tightened with anger. "We're going after him for everything," Marcus said. "Back child support, current child support, medical expenses, and emotional damages for what he did at that wedding. By the time we're done, Kofi Mensah is going to wish he'd been a better father." The lawsuit was filed within a week, but Marcus had one more trick up his sleeve. "I did some digging," he told Amara during one of their meetings. "Kofi claimed on his tax returns that he was single and had no dependents for the past year. That's tax fraud. He was legally required to report Zuri as his dependent and contribute to her support. I forwarded the information to the IRS." Amara felt a cold satisfaction settle in her chest. "What happens now?" "Now we wait. The IRS doesn't play games. If they find evidence of fraud, he could face serious penalties, maybe even criminal charges." While the legal machine ground forward, the court of public opinion had already delivered its verdict. The videos from the wedding had been viewed millions of times. Kofi's name was Mud. Jasmine had deleted all her social media accounts and, according to rumors, had moved back in with her parents. The marriage that was supposed to be a fairy tale had lasted less than 24 hours. But the most unexpected development came from an unlikely source. Kofi's own family turned on him. His younger sister, Akosua, reached out to Amara through Instagram. They met at a coffee shop in Decatur, a neutral location where they could talk privately. "I'm so sorry," Akosua said, tears in her eyes. "I knew Kofi was cheating on you. I knew about Jasmine, but I didn't know about everything else. How he treated you, how he abandoned Zuri. My mother raised us better than this." "Does your mother know the truth now?" Akosua nodded. "She's devastated. She thought you weren't good enough for Kofi. But now she realizes that Kofi wasn't good enough for you. She wants to meet her granddaughter, if you'll allow it." Amara thought about this carefully. Mrs. Mensah had never been kind to her, had never welcomed her into the family. But Zuri deserved to know her father's family, even if her father wanted nothing to do with her. "She can meet Zuri," Amara said finally, "but on my terms, in my home. And she needs to understand that I'm not doing this for Kofi or for her. I'm doing this for my daughter." The meeting happened 2 weeks later. Mrs. Mensah arrived at Amara's apartment with Akosua, carrying bags of gifts for Zuri: clothes, toys, books. When she saw the baby for the first time, she broke down crying. "She looks just like Kofi did when he was born," Mrs. Mensah said, holding Zuri with trembling hands. "The same eyes, the same smile." "She's beautiful, isn't she?" Amara said. Mrs. Mensah looked up at Amara, and for the first time there was no judgment in her eyes, only regret. "I was wrong about you. I thought you weren't sophisticated enough, that you were trying to trap my son. But you were the best thing that ever happened to him, and he was too stupid to see it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for how I treated you. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a start. Meanwhile, Kofi's life continued to unravel. Without his job at Greenfield Financial, he couldn't afford his expensive apartment. He moved into a smaller place across town. His friends stopped calling. His social media was flooded with angry messages from strangers. And Jasmine, beautiful, perfect Jasmine, filed for an annulment, claiming fraud and emotional distress. The man who had everything lost it all in a matter of weeks. But Amara's plan wasn't complete. There was one final piece, one last move that would ensure Kofi never forgot what he'd done. She wrote a book. It took her 3 months, working late at night after Zuri went to sleep, typing on her laptop at the kitchen table. She told her story, all of it. The whirlwind romance, the betrayal, the divorce, the abandoned baby, and finally the wedding where everything came to a head. She didn't use real names, but she didn't need to. Everyone who read it would know exactly who she was talking about. She titled it, The Dress, a Story of Betrayal, Survival, and Revenge. Marcus helped her find a literary agent who helped her find a publisher. They loved the story. In the age of viral moments and social media justice, Amara's tale was exactly what readers wanted. A woman who refused to be a victim, who fought back against the man who tried to destroy her. The book was published 6 months after the wedding. It became an instant bestseller. Amara went on talk shows sharing her story with millions of viewers. She started a nonprofit organization to help single mothers escape abusive relationships. She became a voice for women who had been silenced, a symbol of resilience and strength. And Kofi, he watched all of it from his small apartment, alone, unemployed, and facing criminal charges for tax fraud. He watched his ex-wife become a celebrity while he became a cautionary tale. He watched her succeed while he failed. One night he called her. Amara saw his name on her phone and almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of her. "What do you want, Kofi?" "I just wanted to say," his voice was rough like he'd been crying, "I'm sorry for everything. I was wrong." "You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry that there were consequences. If those videos hadn't gone viral, if you'd gotten away with it, you wouldn't be calling me right now." "That's not true. I've had time to think, to really see what I threw away. You were a good wife, Amara. You didn't deserve what I did to you." "No, I didn't. And Zuri didn't deserve a father who abandoned her. But we're both better off without you. Can I see her? Please? I'm her father. I want to be in her life." Amara was quiet for a long moment. "You know what the saddest part is? If you had asked me that a year ago, I would have said yes. I would have done anything to give Zuri a relationship with her father. But you waited too long, Kofi. You only care now because you're lonely and scared. You don't want to be a father. You just don't want to be alone. That's not fair." "Fair? You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you asked if Zuri was yours? Was it fair when you missed her birth? Was it fair when you ripped my dress off in front of 300 people? Don't talk to me about fair." She hung up. That was the last time they spoke. The court case came and went. Kofi was ordered to pay 3 years of back child support plus ongoing monthly payments. He was convicted of tax fraud and sentenced to probation and community service. He tried to rebuild his life, but the stain of what he'd done never fully washed away. Every job interview, every first date, every new person he met, they all Googled his name and found the videos, the articles, the book. He was a ghost haunting his own life. And Amara? She thrived. She finished her nursing degree and got promoted to head nurse at Memorial Hospital. She moved into a beautiful house with a yard where Zuri could play. She met someone new, a kind man named David, who loved her daughter like she was his own. She was happy, genuinely, authentically happy. Sometimes late at night, she thought about that burgundy dress lying on the ballroom floor. She thought about how humiliated she'd felt in that moment, how small and worthless. But then she remembered what came after, the strength she'd found, the justice she'd fought for, the life she'd built from the ashes of her pain. The dress had been torn, but she hadn't been broken. And that made all the difference. Wow, what a journey. Before we get to the final chapter, I need you to do something for me. First, if you haven't liked this video yet, tap that like button right now, and also subscribe, please. Comment below and tell me, Do you think Amara's revenge was justified? Have you or someone you know experienced something similar? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you're loving this story, share it with your friends and family. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. 2 years had passed since the wedding that changed everything. Amara stood in the kitchen of her new home, watching Zuri chase butterflies in the backyard through the window. Her daughter was almost 3 now, talking in full sentences and asking questions about everything she saw. She had Kofi's eyes but Amara's smile, and she was the brightest light in Amara's life. David came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You're thinking about him again, aren't you? How did you know? You get this look on your face, like you're somewhere far away." He kissed her cheek. "You know you don't owe him any space in your head anymore, right? I know, it's just, tomorrow is the anniversary, 2 years since that night. Tomorrow would mark exactly 2 years since the wedding. The night that had been viewed by millions, dissected by talk shows, and turned into a cautionary tale about karma and consequences. The night that had changed both their lives forever." Amara's phone buzzed, a text from Marcus, her lawyer. "Court date is set, 3 weeks from now. Are you ready for this?" She'd been expecting this message. Kofi had filed a motion to reduce his child support payments, claiming financial hardship. It would be the first time they'd been in the same room since that phone call 2 years ago. The first time she'd have to look at him face to face. "I'm ready," she texted back. But she wasn't sure if that was true. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur. Amara prepared for court, gathering documents and meeting with Marcus to review their strategy. She tried to stay focused, but memories kept creeping in, both good and bad. She remembered the Kofi who'd cried at their wedding, who'd promised to love her forever, and she remembered the Kofi who'd ripped her dress, who'd abandoned his daughter, who tried to erase her from his life. Which one was the real Kofi? Or were they both real, two sides of the same broken person? The day of the hearing arrived. Amara dressed carefully in a navy blue suit, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. She looked professional, put together, successful. She needed Kofi to see that she'd won, that his attempts to destroy her had only made her stronger. The courthouse was the same one where their divorce had been finalized. As Amara walked through the metal detectors, she felt like she was traveling back in time. But this time was different. This time she wasn't alone and afraid. She had Marcus by her side, her mother watching Zuri at home, and David waiting to take her to lunch afterward. She had a support system, a community of people who believed in her. They entered the courtroom. Kofi was already there, sitting at the defendant's table with his lawyer, a tired-looking woman in a rumpled suit. When he saw Amara, something flickered across his face. Regret, longing, anger. She couldn't tell. But what shocked her was how different he looked. The confident, polished man who'd worked in finance was gone. This Kofi was thin, almost gaunt, with shadows under his eyes and cheap clothes that didn't fit quite right. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in two. For a moment, just a moment, Amara felt something that might have been pity. The judge entered and everyone stood. Judge Patricia Morrison was known for being tough but fair, with no patience for deadbeat parents. Marcus had been thrilled when they'd drawn her for this case. Kofi's lawyer spoke first. She painted a picture of a man who'd made mistakes but was trying to change. A man who'd lost everything and was barely surviving. She talked about how he'd been unemployed for over a year, how he was working part-time jobs just to make rent, how the child support payments were crushing him financially. "Your Honor," she said, "my client isn't asking to eliminate his obligations. He's simply asking for a reduction that reflects his current financial reality. He wants to be in his daughter's life, but he can't do that if he's drowning in debt." Then it was Marcus's turn. He stood up slowly, deliberately, and looked directly at Kofi. "Your Honor, Mr. Mensah claims he wants to be in his daughter's life, but in the 2 years since she was born, he has seen her exactly 0 times. Not once. He didn't send a birthday card for her first birthdays or her second. He didn't call on Christmas. He has made no effort whatsoever to build a relationship with his child. The only time we hear from Mr. Mensah is when he wants to pay less money." Marcus pulled out a folder. "I have statements from Miss Okonkwo showing her expenses. Daycare costs $1,200 a month. Health insurance is another $300. Food, clothing, toys, books. The cost of raising a child is substantial. Miss Okonkwo works full-time as a nurse and still struggles to make ends meet. Meanwhile, Mr. Mensah is asking to pay even less than the already minimal amount he currently contributes. But my client has no income, Kofi's lawyer protested. How can he pay what he doesn't have? Perhaps Mr. Mensah should have thought about that before he spent thousands of dollars on his wedding, Marcus replied. Or before he spent money on his affair while his pregnant wife struggled to pay bills. Financial hardship doesn't erase responsibility. Judge Morrison looked at Kofi. Mr. Mensah, I've reviewed your financial statements. I see that you're currently unemployed, but I also see that you were terminated from your position at Greenfield Financial for cause, and that you've turned down several job offers in the past year because they were, quote, beneath your qualifications. Is that correct? Kofi stood up, his hands shaking. Your Honor, those jobs wouldn't have paid enough to cover my expenses and child support. I was trying to find something better. So you chose to remain unemployed rather than take available work. I was trying to rebuild my career. Mr. Mensah, you have a college degree and years of experience in finance. The fact that you're unemployed is a choice, not a circumstance. This court will not reward that choice by reducing your child support obligations. Judge Morrison shuffled through some papers. I'm denying your motion for a reduction. Furthermore, I'm ordering you to begin job hunting immediately and to report your efforts to this court monthly. If you fail to find employment within 90 days, I will hold you in contempt and you will face jail time. Do you understand? Kofi's face crumbled. Your Honor, please. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down like thunder. As people filed out of the courtroom, Kofi caught up to Amara in the hallway. His lawyer tried to stop him, but he brushed past her. Amara, wait, please, I need to talk to you. She stopped, turning to face him. Marcus stepped forward protectively, but Amara held up a hand. It's okay. They stood in the courthouse hallway, two people who'd once promised to love each other forever. Now strangers connected only by a child one of them had never met. I'm sorry, Kofi said. I know I've said it before, but I mean it this time. I'm really, truly sorry. For everything. For cheating on you. For abandoning Zuri. For what I did at the wedding. I was angry and stupid, and I took it out on you because you were the only one who couldn't fight back. Or so I thought. Why are you telling me this now? Because I have nothing left to lose. My career is gone. My reputation is destroyed. Jasmine left me. My own family barely speaks to me. I lost everything, and it's all my fault. But the worst part, the part that keeps me up at night, is that I lost Zuri. I have a daughter I've never held. A little girl who doesn't know my face. And it's all because I was too proud and too stupid to be the father she deserved. Tears were streaming down his face now. Real tears, not the manipulative kind he'd used during their marriage when he wanted something. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he continued. I know I don't deserve that. But I'm asking for a chance. One chance to meet my daughter, to tell her I'm sorry, to try to be something better than what I've been. Amara looked at this broken man and felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no pity, just emptiness. The person she'd loved, the person she'd hated. They were both gone, replaced by this hollow shell. I'll think about it, she said finally, but I'm not making any promises. You hurt me in ways I'm still healing from. And I won't let you hurt Zuri the same way. I understand. Thank you. That's more than I deserve. He walked away, shoulders slumped, looking smaller somehow than he had when he'd entered the courthouse. That night, Amara sat on her back porch, watching the stars come out. David was inside putting Zuri to bed. She could hear them through the open window. David doing silly voices for the bedtime story. Zuri giggling with delight. Her mother came outside and sat down beside her. You're thinking about letting him see her, aren't you? How do you always know what I'm thinking, Mama? Because I'm your mother, and because I know your heart. You want Zuri to have a father, even if he doesn't deserve to be one. Is that wrong? Her mother was quiet for a long moment. Your father wasn't a good man, Amara. He drank too much, worked too little, and left when you were 7. But even now, 30 years later, I sometimes wonder if I should have fought harder to keep him in your life. Not for his sake, but for yours. Every little girl deserves to know her father, even if he's disappointing. But what if Kofi hurts her? What if he promises to be there and then disappears again? Then you'll be there to pick up the pieces, just like I was there for you. But at least Zuri will know the truth. She'll know who her father really is, not some fantasy version she builds in her head. Amara thought about this. She thought about all the years she'd spent wondering about her own father, building him up in her imagination into someone better than he'd been. She thought about Zuri, who would one day ask questions about the man whose eyes she'd inherited. Maybe her mother was right. Maybe knowing the truth, even a disappointing truth, was better than not knowing at all. 2 weeks later, Amara arranged a meeting, supervised visitation at a child-friendly cafe in Midtown. She, Kofi, and Zuri, with Amara's mother there as backup. 1 hour. That was all she was willing to give. When Kofi arrived, he was carrying a teddy bear that was almost as big as Zuri. He'd dressed carefully in clean clothes that actually fit, and he'd gotten a haircut. He looked nervous, terrified even. Zuri hid behind Amara's legs, peeking out at the stranger. "Zuri, sweetheart, this is Kofi. He's someone who wants to meet you." Amara couldn't bring herself to say, "Your father." Not yet. Maybe not ever. Kofi knelt down to Zuri's level. "Hi there. I brought you a friend. His name is, what should we call him?" Zuri looked at the bear, then at Kofi. "Mr. Fluffy. Mr. Fluffy it is." He handed her the bear, and Zuri took it slowly, still wary. They sat at a table. Kofi tried to make conversation, asking about Zuri's favorite colors and foods and TV shows. She answered in her little toddler voice, warming up slowly. At one point, she even laughed at one of his jokes. Amara watched this interaction with complicated feelings. Part of her wanted to snatch Zuri away, to protect her from this man who'd caused so much pain. But another part of her saw something she hadn't expected. Genuine remorse, genuine effort, genuine love in Kofi's eyes as he looked at his daughter for the first time. Maybe people could change. Maybe not completely, not enough to undo the past, but enough to build something different in the future. When the hour was up, Kofi stood to leave. "Thank you," he said to Amara. "Thank you for giving me this chance. I know I don't deserve it." "You're right, you don't. But Zuri deserves a chance to know her father. We'll do this again in 2 weeks. Same time, same place. If you show up and you're sober and you're kind, we'll keep going. But if you disappoint her even once, that's it. You're done." "I understand. I'll be here." And he was. 2 weeks later, then 2 weeks after that. Slowly, carefully, Kofi began building a relationship with his daughter. It wasn't perfect. There were setbacks and awkward moments and times when Amara wondered if she'd made a mistake. But Zuri loved her Mr. Fluffy Bear, and she started asking when she'd see Kofi again. 6 months into the visits, something unexpected happened. Kofi got a job. Not in finance, those doors were closed to him forever, but in nonprofit work, helping other fathers who'd made mistakes learn how to be better parents. The pay wasn't great, but it was honest work, meaningful work. He started paying his child support on time. He sent birthday cards and Christmas presents. He showed up to Zuri's preschool performances. He was trying, really trying, to be something better than what he'd been. One evening after dropping Zuri off from a visit, Kofi lingered at Amara's doorstep. "I wanted to tell you something," he said. "I've been going to therapy, dealing with a lot of stuff I should have dealt with years ago. My therapist asked me what I regretted most in my life, and I didn't even have to think about it. Losing you. Not because of what you could give me, but because of who you are. You're strong and kind and brave, and I was too stupid to see it. I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. Kofi, I'm not trying to get you back. I know that ship has sailed. I see you with David. How happy you are. How he treats Zuri like she's his own daughter. He's the man I should have been. But I wanted you to know that you winning, you building this beautiful life, it doesn't make me angry anymore. It makes me glad. You deserve to win. You deserved everything good that's happened to you." Amara felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you for saying that. I also wanted to give you this." He pulled out an envelope. Inside was a check for $50,000. "It's all my savings, every penny I have. I know it doesn't come close to making up for the child support I missed or the pain I caused, but it's a start. Kofi, I can't take this. Please, let me do this one thing right. Put it in a college fund for Zuri, or use it to take a vacation. Whatever you want. Just let me give my daughter something good. Amara took the check, her hands shaking. This was the man she'd thought she married, the man she'd hoped existed under all the selfishness and cruelty. Maybe he'd been there all along, buried under fear and pride. Or maybe he'd had to lose everything to finally become him. Either way, it didn't change the past. But maybe, just maybe, it could change the future. 3 years after the wedding, Amara was invited to speak at a conference for survivors of domestic abuse. She stood on stage in front of hundreds of women and told her story. She talked about the dress, the viral videos, the revenge. But she also talked about what came after, the healing, the growth, the unexpected redemption. I used to think revenge was about destroying the person who hurt you, she said, and maybe in the moment, that's what it feels like. But real revenge, lasting revenge, is building a life so good that your pain becomes a footnote in your story instead of the main chapter. It's showing your daughter that she doesn't have to accept cruelty just because it comes from someone who claims to love her. It's becoming so strong that the person who tried to break you can only stand back and watch in awe. The audience gave her a standing ovation. After her speech, dozens of women came up to thank her, to tell her that her story had given them courage to leave their own abusive situations. That night, Amara went home to her family, to Zuri, now 5 years old and starting kindergarten, to David, who'd proposed last month with a ring that didn't cost much but meant everything, to her mother, who'd stayed in Atlanta to help raise her granddaughter. She sat at the dinner table, listening to Zuri chatter about her day, and felt a peace she'd never thought possible. Her phone buzzed. A text from Kofi. Saw your speech online. I'm proud of you. Zuri is lucky to have you as her mother. I'll see her on Saturday. Tell her I love her. Amara smiled and put her phone away. The man who tried to destroy her had become one of her biggest supporters. The wedding that was supposed to humiliate her had made her famous. The dress that had been ripped apart had been recreated and put in a museum exhibit about women's resilience. Everything Kofi had meant for evil, God and Amara's own strength, had turned to good. And that, she realized, was the best revenge of all. 5 years after the wedding, on the anniversary of that night, Amara received a package in the mail. Inside was a frame containing a photo of that burgundy dress, carefully preserved, with a plaque that read, "This dress was torn, but the woman who wore it never broke. Donated by Kofi Mensah in honor of Amara Okonkwo, the strongest person I've ever known." She hung it in her office, a reminder of where she'd been and how far she'd come. And every time she looked at it, she remembered the most important lesson she'd learned, that the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy. It's becoming so completely, utterly, triumphantly yourself that they have no choice but to respect the person they tried to erase. Kofi had tried to disgrace her at his wedding, but in the end she'd done something far more powerful. She'd forgiven him, not for his sake, but for her own. She'd let go of the anger and the bitterness, and built a life filled with love and purpose and joy. And that was worth more than any revenge could ever be. Wow, what a journey this has been. From that devastating moment at the wedding to this beautiful ending, Amara showed us what true strength looks like. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you believe in the power of resilience, I need you to hit that like button right now. My mom said I can't reach 1,000 subscribers. Let's prove her so wrong. Subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications because I have more incredible stories like this one coming your way. Drop a comment and tell me, what was your favorite part of Amara's story? Do you think she did the right thing by letting Kofi back into Zuri's life? Have you ever experienced betrayal like this? Share your story in the comments. This is a safe space for all of us. And please share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Whether they're going through a difficult time, dealing with a toxic ex, or just need a reminder that they're stronger than they think, send them this story. It might be exactly what they need today. Thank you so much for watching until the very end. You're part of this community now, and I can't wait to share more powerful stories with you. Remember, you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. Stay strong, stay blessed, and I'll see you in the next story.